essentially, whenever you say, I think there was a really big hype, for the metaverse in 21-22. I think there were a lot of interesting things that were being said about this entire space, and in a way, the amount of excitement that is brought forward by, of course, the Facebook rebrand to Meta, right? I mean, what triggered that? Let's look at the chain of events. I think, Facebook, one of the companies that I think everybody in the world knew about, such a powerful brand, Facebook, actually changed their company's name to Meta, right? Largely driven by, the launch of the headsets at that time. Apple was talking about very excitedly about the headset, which they later launched, the Vision Pro. Google had already experimented with these headsets. So there was a lot of buzz because Amazon had, acquired a fair number of companies within the space. So, I mean, all of the big four, all of the big tech are talking about what is going to be the next computing interface. And what the next computing interface, when everybody wants their hands on it. So no wonder there was a massive kind of a campaign around making everybody aware about it, and a lot of these other things that would kind of come in. But at the same time, I mean, we had been kind of reading the signs on the wall that were leading up to this back in 16, where metaverse wasn't really, the term was a very old term that was coined ages ago, but it wasn't really used in the same context that it had started being picked up. So, we have seen names change from VR to VR, AR, to XR, right, to then metaverse. And now I think we're all gravitating towards spatial computing as an industry. So I think, we've seen all of these twists and turns, and that is in a way also the challenge. Because a narrative, right, quite unlike the reality of building a product, there is a cycle that moves a lot quicker. Right, on-ground adoption might not work with that cycle. When we say metaverse, everyone wants to try it. Everyone has huge budgets. You pump some money into it, get immediate results. If yes, great. If no, move forward. We had a similar buzz with AI, and I think AI has been far better in terms of getting the adoption rates across than the metaverse because of the challenges the industry was facing, specifically around the hardware and getting to all of those places. So it leads to some really interesting dilemmas. It leads to certain really interesting questions. But what is important is that you don't change what you believe in, what brings value to the customer's table. I think throughout this entire cycle, there was not a single day where we had to change the definition of what we thought brings value to the table. As long as you are sure about the value you are giving to the end user, I mean, buzzwords will come, buzzwords will go. You will be able to rebrand your company if it better fits the narrative. I mean, those things come and go. But at the core of it, what is the core value you bring to the table? I think that remained fairly constant. So I think that is very important. And, we were very happy in the highs of the high. Everyone's talking about it. You start getting naturally more interest. But when we were looking at, articles published that went ahead and said the metaverse is dead, I mean, that doesn't mean in any way that the value I'm providing to you is dead. And I think we had a very good set of clients through that growth phase, right? Because it was exactly through this growth phase, metaverse, no metaverse, alive, dead, through all of this, that we actually scaled up to a company which had, 3 million users just in a 12-month period who would go in and experience things on our product. So the value was being delivered. There's a lot of hype, but it also helps educate the market. So looking back, I wouldn't complain. I think it's been, it educates the market, it gets people there. Yes, it tends to tumble you up and down a little bit, but net, I think, can't complain. Of course, the only complaints are that, the hardware side is, picking up far differently, in a lot of different ways. But I think those things are just a matter of time. There are cycles, there are things that kind of work with it. But largely, it's been fairly fun. I think, one of the most important things you need to realize is what is the problem that you are solving. I think this is, this sentence has been packaged and repackaged in a lot of different ways, and it doesn't seem very different, but I think it's very important to start with a clear problem statement. One of the unfortunate things about our industry, the metaverse, is a lot of people kind of come because it is cool. Like, I mean, I think you mentioned before, it is a cool space to work in. You are working with a lot of advanced headsets. You're getting to meet some, really, cool people along this journey as well. But there should be something that there has to be depth beyond just the fact that you want to be in a cool space, you want to be in a cool industry. And I think that depth would come from having a clear and compelling picture of, hey, I see this as a gap within this space that I think needs to be addressed. the gap has to be significant. It shouldn't be a gap that matters only to you, but it has to matter to a subsegment of people who are in that industry or allied industries or whoever you're planning to kind of go to. And if you are able to find a problem that resonates and people willing to pay for a solution, I think that is the only thing you kind of need to do. And this is true for any industry, but what I would specifically say for our industry is that don't just go into this for the coolness factor of it, right? I mean, headsets are very cool. A lot of other things in this industry are super cool, but it's very important to stay, focused on what value you are bringing to the table. What is it that, how does a client perceive you? Do they perceive you as, the ability to keep a really cool headset in the office and that's about it? Or do they perceive you as, hey, I brought you on board and you changed something in my life, right? Or you changed something in the way I do work. That change could be small, doesn't have to be massive, but as long as it is a significant enough change for them to, them to feel that, yes, this is something that is beyond just coolness. I think that is very important. That's exactly it, right? So, I mean, we love Gen Z. I mean, Gen Z is essentially a very important reason, that shift in evolution is actually becoming very clear. See, I want to make it very, I think my generation, perhaps the last, that is going to really understand what the earth was without this layer of technology kind of wrapped around it, because we've seen massive growth in the last 20-30 years. I mean, just in the way we communicate as a species, and I think that has pretty much changed the way that we communicate. And I think there is no better example than Gen Z. They were born with phone or a tablet, easy access to it. It was starting to kind of work. Gen Z was starting to kind of see communication come through. They were at the right age when the phones and tablets became popular, and they were able to then, they created a lot of shifts in the way we consume. I think today it is very normal for us to assume that somebody who's gone Gen Z has spent some time on Fortnite or one of these 3D games, would understand interfaces a lot better than their millennial or older counterparts. You would be able to kind of come out and relate a little more to a lot of things. And I think that is a paradigm shift in the way our digital presence, kind of getting our digital presence is now important. Here's a generation that has not just been able to understand the importance of their digital presence, but also capitalize and monetize it, beyond what the other generations have seen. So I think Gen Z is opening a really big paradigm shift in the way, in the way we present ourselves, in the way that there is a digital reality. Of course, it has its ups and downs in terms of very interesting ways, but the avenue of coming and being a generation that understands these things a lot better opens out a lot of things. In general, our approval ratings, wherever somebody from that age group is coming in, is a lot higher. They tend to get it. They tend to engage more. So I mean, we're very excited for them to come into the workforce, and of course the energy that they are bringing in. I think a very important thing was said initially: the attention span, right? I think the only thing that has fundamentally changed, right, is the way or the amount of attention span that exists in Gen Z versus before. There's actually no other change, fundamental change, right? Fundamentally, you're the same, except for the fact that the attention span is a lot lower. Why is the attention span lower? Because if somebody bombards you with 50 things, 50 pieces of information, 100 notifications per hour, obviously you have to filter, right? So we call this frontal filtering. Our brains are developing a skill that is getting us to filter very aggressively. What are the things that are worth my attention? Would I rather be on Instagram and scrolling? So our brain is thinking in a different way simply because of the overwhelming load of things that are coming our way. It is unprecedented. It has never happened before that we had so many things asking for our attention, right? So we evolve. And that is honestly the only difference that changes the way that you are more in control of deciding what you want to engage with. Right? And I think Gen Z coming into the workforce, all those questions that come in are just because of the ability to realize this, that here's a generation that prioritizes differently. Here's a generation that has evolved to understand that here are the 20, 30 different things that might ask for your attention, and this is what I want to personally pay more attention to. So I think they're bringing around a lot of interesting paradigm shifts. It's fairly interesting, it's compelling, and obviously we'll be happy as that evolution continues. I think we're talking now about the next generations after Z as well. So I think it's a fairly compelling way of at least for us. way of growth in terms of mindset and psyche. So back in I'm talking about 2013 is when I graduated. I'd actually started working very solidly towards computational design, which essentially inherently has a lot of the same things that spatial computing talks about. It is about looking at data in a three-dimensional way and then drawing intelligence or insights out of it, and then actioning those insights to then feed back into the process. This was extremely different, as a space at that time. Spatial computing wasn't the term necessarily used, but it was around. We were, doing everything from, optimizing mega structures by using the ability to suddenly code in order to design, right? And I think that avenue opened out a lot of possibilities. In general, even if you were to look at the world of tech today, there seems to be a very distinct line drawn between your technology and design divisions, right? Apple was able to hack through that and provide a unified approach that essentially seemed tech first but also design first, and therefore it became the $1 trillion company that it is. And that is why they were able to kind of break through it. It's one of the most classic examples. But at the same time, spatial computing actually allows for there to be a unified way for everybody involved in a particular process to be a participator in that process, right? So in order to get a multitude of people who might be from different domains get their contribution into a central project, I think there are a lot of things within the realm, within the very essential stages of spatial computing that work. It talks about collaboration. It talks about being able to solve problems in intelligent ways together. So I think that is bringing a lot of things to the table, but it also essentially brings the design and technology verticals together in interesting ways. I think should change the very way things are done. I think we're in a we're very lucky to be in a time where a lot of the things that are happening around are essentially paradigm shifts in the way we do everything, right? I can't remember a lot of things that remain similar in my day-to-day life. When I would compare to, let's say, 10 or 15, 15 or even 10 years back, right? So a lot of things have changed. A lot of things have changed in the way we are going about it, and these paradigm shifts are, coming through in a very interesting way. Specifically focusing on spatial computing, I think there are a lot of interesting problem statements within it. While it is one single word, spatial computing, it is not as yet a unified industry. You want to kind of figure out the subsegment of spatial computing that makes more sense. It is what I'm trying to say is that spatial computing is until now a tool. It is not an endpoint unto itself. It is something that will that you can leverage in order to solve other things. It doesn't exist in of itself. Apart from, of course, the hardware headset creation, kind of a division, it is something that you need to kind of find a subsegment within. So if you're looking at getting into this industry, do figure out what subsegment makes the most sense to you or where your skill set would work the most. But that said, it's a very compelling problem statement. It is bringing technology into three dimensions, into the world around us, not limited to screens, which is how all of us are consuming digital content today. So what happens after the screen, right? I mean, this is something that I always say, like, our devices have looked exactly like this for the longest time ever. All of our phones look exactly the same today. Before that, there is a series of evolution, series of things that change. And today, this is the computing device that we all carry around us, that we interact with, our laptops, our phones. Everything is screen driven, right? What next? Is this the end of the evolution cycle? Probably not, right? So what happens is that the sheer amount of digital data that we are creating is now spreading into the world, right? Data of any kind, right, is kind of coming in to our world, into the three-dimensional world with us as three-dimensional beings, being able to perceive and interact better with it. So that shift brings a lot of opportunities with it. That is essentially the shift that we are seeing. And find your subdomain within it. It's not a single problem statement. There are thousands upon thousands. So find the one that works for you and jump into it, because exciting times to come for sure. As always, we don't look so much around as we do within. I think that is one of the most important things. We work very closely with the clients that we have to understand how our products are solving their problem statements and how we can continue to better that journey, right? I think our journey at GMetri is all about taking that and just repeating at a very fast rate, right? So as long as you're listening to what part of your solution worked for the customer, what value it added, and how can you now create more of that value, how can you create some other value that the customer hadn't even thought of, and put it in front of them and then kind of bring it forward. So we work with that approach. In terms of how we work with the competition, I don't think it's ever been the case that we look at somebody, say, hey, that seems to be interesting, so you gravitate. I think that's not the way that you build a sustainable company. You sustain through the people who are essentially who should be driving the growth of the product, and that shouldn't be as much driven by competitors as much it should be by your customers. So yeah, we always follow the customer, and that's the plan. That's what the plan will always be.